The video presentation you are about to see was produced in 1993 as a training video for persons working with aging Holocaust survivors in a long-term care setting. At that time, World War II had been over for almost 50 years. I was honored to be a part of this important project, but at the time it was done, I had no way to fully appreciate the impact it would have. As of today, nearly 200 copies of the video have been purchased by geriatric facilities, hospitals, family service organizations, and schools, and it has been translated into both Hebrew and French. Thousands of geriatric caregivers, social workers, psychologists, and medical personnel have become aware of the special needs of aging Holocaust survivors thanks to the video you are about to see. It has also spurred additional interest in the unique needs of aging survivors around the country and has encouraged professionals to acknowledge these needs by creating new programs and services for survivors. When watching this video, please keep in mind that you'll hear several references to the Holocaust having taken place 50 years ago. In addition, the trouble spots in the world you'll see referenced were some of the most volatile at that time, though they may not be today. Despite the passage of time, I'm sure you'll find the video relevant and important to the work you do. I'm proud to be associated with it and know its viability will last for many, many years to come.
I find these scenes very difficult to watch. They occurred 50 years ago in Nazi-occupied Poland. But for people who survived their horror, this period of history continues to dredge up vivid and painful memories. I'm Congressman Louis Stokes, and I'm speaking to you from the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum in Washington, D.C. The museum is our country's memorial to the victims of the Holocaust. It is dedicated to the memory of the 6 million Jews and millions of non-Jews who perished under the Nazis. I'm standing in an area of the museum called the Tower of Faces. These are the faces of people from one village destroyed by the Nazis. Thousands of thriving communities like this were wiped out during the Holocaust, and most of their inhabitants were murdered. This period was witness to one of the most calculated and brutal atrocities ever to be inflicted on a people, the Nazi Holocaust. You often hear the word Holocaust in the news. Several of today's trouble spots where people are either killed or suffer greatly at the hands of others are sometimes compared to the Holocaust. In fact, it is possible to see similarities to the way other groups of people have been treated over the ages, including Native Americans and our black slave ancestors from Africa. The Holocaust that killed 6 million Jews in Eastern Europe had its own uniqueness. Many men and women living in your nursing home survived this period of Nazi terror in Europe. They came to the United States, raised families, and led productive and fruitful lives. Yet scars from this period remain which affect their lives today. This video provides a unique opportunity to learn more about what happened in Europe 50 years ago. In 1933, Adolf Hitler became Chancellor of Germany. He hated the Jews and blamed them for every problem Germany faced. Times were difficult and economically depressed, and Hitler was able to gain support through his persuasive manner. Many people were eager to find a scapegoat for their own problems, and they blamed the Jews. Between 1933 and 1939, Hitler enacted a series of laws which took away basic rights and freedoms that German Jews enjoyed. Jewish businesses were boycotted. Jews were forbidden to work as doctors, lawyers, teachers, or government officials. After 1938, Jews were not allowed in restaurants, stores, movie theaters, and in many cities in an attempt to keep them purely German.
After the Nazis came to town, the restrictions against the Jews were put into use. There was curfew after 6 o'clock. Jewish people could not walk in the street. Of course, the children, the younger people, school stopped immediately. There was no school. At that time, I was 15 years old, which means that my school days were over. Other restrictions were that if there was a Jewish store still in operation, he had to have a Jewish star put up on the window.
On November 9th and 10th, 1938, synagogues in Germany and Austria were burned, damaged, or destroyed. This night became known as Kristallnacht, the night of broken glass. Jewish shops were looted. 30,000 Jews were arrested and sent to concentration camps established throughout Germany and Austria. By 1939, Hitler's army had invaded both Poland and Czechoslovakia, where 3.5 million Jews lived.
One of the restrictions was that we had to wear armbands, which were white armbands with a blue star on it. Every male or female over the age of 12 had to wear these armbands. The Germans considered us subhuman, and therefore they would not lower themselves to talk to us normally like to a human being.
By 1940, Germany had overrun Holland, Belgium, France, and Norway, inflicting the same cruel measures on the Jews of those countries that had befallen the Jews of Germany. In Poland and the Soviet Union, the Nazis forced Jews to live in restricted, cramped sections of towns known as ghettos. They were fenced in with barbed wire, walled in some cases, and locked. Children were not allowed to attend school. Food was severely rationed, and what did get through was usually rotten. Daily, thousands of people died on the streets of ghettos from starvation and illness, their bodies unclaimed and eventually buried in mass graves.
Try to imagine yourself having just a small section of this part of the city set up. You were placed one family per room, so try to having to share this house with as many families as there are rooms, 5, 6, 7 families, total strangers, and you have to learn how to get along with these people, total strangers. Try to imagine a place where there is no synagogues, no churches, no libraries, no schools, no newspapers, no books, no bicycles, no pets. It's like you live in a vacuum, but in that vacuum there is starvation, there is disease, there is epidemic, and there is death all around you.
By 1941, Hitler decided to complete what he called the final solution to the Jewish problem. The Germans embarked on a coordinated program of mass murder designed to rid Europe of all Jews. This slaughter of Jews continued, uninterrupted for 3 years, until the end of World War II, when the Germans were defeated by Britain, France, Russia, and the United States in 1945. In ghettos and villages in Eastern Europe, Jewish men, women, and children were rounded up by the thousands and forced to dig large trenches. They were then shot and pushed into the very ditches they had dug. Other Jews were torn away from their families and their loved ones, shoved into locked cattle cars without any food or bathrooms and with little air, and sent to the death camps.
I remember the separation, it was so awful that even till today I have dreams about it. I was holding on to my mom and crying and kept telling her I don't want to go any place. My sister was screaming and didn't know what's happening.
Many did not survive the grueling train rides to concentration camps. But if they did, the very young, the very old, the weak and ill, and many women were selected to be immediately killed in the large gas chambers disguised as shower rooms. Their bodies were then burned in large ovens. Those who appeared strong enough were selected to work as slaves and live in very poor conditions in camps.
As we entered the camp, there were vicious trained dogs, there were shouts. We were tattooed numbers, meaning that we were not having any names anymore. The way it was done was a painful process. They were giving little shots into the skin and your whole arm swelled up after that. We stopped having names. We were just numbers like sheep going to the slaughter. You know, just to being even stripped in front of strange men was terribly dehumanization. And we were shaven, even our pubic hair was shaven. There was no shame for anyone anymore. We slept in 3 tiers of cold beds, which were no beds. They had no comfort of a bed. They had no straw, no sheets, no blankets, no pillows. We slept in the same dress that we were all day long. And if one wanted to turn, we all had to turn because we were squeezed like sardines.
Jews were not the only targets of the Nazi terror. Homosexuals, the physically and mentally disabled, and others considered inferior were also brutally treated and murdered. But as the primary target of Germany's plans, only the Jews and Gypsies were singled out for mass destruction. By 1945 and the end of World War II, close to 6 million Jews had been killed, including 1.5 million children. Many of those who survived the camps died shortly after they were liberated, too sick and weak to go on. Those who did survive tell heroic tales of friendship and support in the camps.
We were assigned, there were 30 girls, to a tiny little room. We slept on bunk beds. And that closeness that developed among the inmates was beyond belief. We became a unit, a family. We would help each other. We would give courage to each other. We would cover up for each other. Our religion, of course, was a very strong part of our lives. And that perhaps too helped us sustain ourselves. But more than anything else, it was that closeness of one girl to another, looking after each other, helping each other. That was I think, that more than anything else helped us in our terrible time.
Not all of the non-Jews in Germany, Poland, and other occupied countries cooperated with the Nazis. Denmark was one of the countries in Europe where its citizens banded together to save its Jewish population. All but 500 Jews were sent to Sweden during a daring rescue operation and safely hidden until the end of World War II. There are many stories of righteous men and women who hid Jews, raised the children of friends, and saved the lives of friends and neighbors in France, Italy, Poland, Bulgaria, and other countries.
In the ghetto became very dangerous for us, so my father arranged with a farmer to smuggle us out from a ghetto to nearby village. There were nuns that took care of us. They were very kind and loving people. All of them, I assume that they knew that we are Jewish children, but they have never questioned us and never asked us anything. And my recollection of the priest that took us, it was the only figure of father that I really remember. He was kind and gentle and a good person. it was very difficult for me to leave a convent because of that, because they became my family.
Many of the men and women who survived the Holocaust were witness to indescribable horrors. Most never saw family members again. They survived medical experimentation, brutal physical attacks, inhuman living conditions, illnesses, and severe injury. They lived, some for many years, under the constant shadow of death.
Basically, you would say we are happy people, and we maybe are at times, but the memories are embedded in us. They are part of us. And no matter how much we can celebrate, rejoice, the memories will never leave us. They are embodiment of our very being. And they are a part of us that can never be erased, never forgotten.
Each person you care for as a healthcare professional is an individual. Each has a unique history, yet many carry with them memories which you and I will never know. We can only try to understand why they may have special reactions to very ordinary, everyday situations.
Aging and sickness, which are the norm in a nursing home, present extra problems to our Holocaust survivors because aging and sickness during the Holocaust meant certain death. Nobody wants to admit that they're getting older, but a person living through the Holocaust knew that meant the immediate end of their life. A minor illness might take them to the gas chambers. The overriding sadness is another symptom that we often see in our Holocaust survivors. They remember their losses, loss of family. Many of them, most of them, lost their brothers, sisters, cousins, mothers, fathers, aunts, uncles, grandparents. They were the only members of their families to survive.